G'day folks, my name is Peter Hobson. I'm the Superintendent Minister of Wesley Mission Queensland, and I'm speaking to you from the beautiful Albert Street Uniting Church here in the heart of Brisbane CBD. I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are right now, the Yagara and the Turrbal people, to thank them for the care they've given this place for many thousands of years, and to pay respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. April 25th, ANZAC Day, and November 11th, Remembrance Day, are two very significant dates in the Australian calendar. On these 2 days in particular, our nation stops to remember the sacrifice of so many. Lives lost in war must give us pause to consider that armed conflict should always be a last resort, and that we need to invest more time and energy and resources into the calling of peacemaking, working for justice, and helping to build strong communities that are safe and secure. The Christian gospel imagines a time when all wars will cease and weapons will be turned into farming equipment. This continues to be our prayer and our calling. April 24th, 2021 was a centenary of the unveiling of the honour roll in the foyer of Albert Street Uniting Church, a list of names representing the men and women who went to war as combatants and medics and chaplains, some never to return. In this video, we honour their memory and recommit ourselves to the important work of peacemaking in our community.
Emotions running among the Australian population by the end of World War I included grief and a deep sense of loss about the dead and maimed both physically and mentally. There was also relief that such a long, grinding war was over and there would be the return of dearly loved ones. There remained horror about what modern warfare meant, but there was much pride in the resilience, the bravery and the character of the Australian troops and the nurses.
The Superintendent Minister at Albert Street, the Reverend Dr. George Rowe, had served for many years as Queensland's Senior Methodist Chaplain and spent a period in the Middle East in 1915. He had personally delivered much tragic news and consolation to families and had heard many gruelling accounts from servicemen and women. As well as the community at large, he well understood the need to honour and remember after the war those who had served. Special services were held in all of the churches soon after the armistice on the 11th of November 1918. The Albert Street, then Methodist Church, held such a service on the 16th of November 1918, followed on the 2nd of March 1919 by a memorial service for all Queensland Methodist service members who had made their ultimate sacrifice in the war. The printed order of service included nearly 700 names, and a copy was sent to all of the families of those named.
2 years later, on Sunday, 24 April 1921, a marble honour roll was unveiled at the entrance of the Albert Street Church. On that day, it listed 224 names, with 4 others subsequently added. 65 in total had died during the war. This is a relatively high proportion, perhaps explained by the notable percentage who had served in the infantry. Another notable feature is the number who served in medical roles, in field ambulance units, as stretcher bearers, in hospitals and on hospital ships. Many of the 228 were Australian born, single and aged 18 to 30, as was the case generally with enlistments throughout Australia. With many of them coming from Brisbane, they were primarily tradesmen, clerks, salesmen, labourers and professionals, including 4 nurses.
In summary, 178 people have been identified of the 228 names on the honour roll. Of the 43 who served on Gallipoli, 12 died, 2 on April the 25th. 23 who served on Gallipoli went on to the Western Front. 11 died. 125 served on the Western Front only. 41 died. Their individual stories are varied. We have selected 4 whose stories are representative of those who served.
Gallipoli, Lieutenant Leslie Collin. Leslie Norman Collin was an impressive young man of much promise. At Brisbane Grammar School, he was regarded as an intelligent and industrious. He then passed his first year at the University of Queensland and was aiming at a career in the law. Despite his youth, he has strong leadership capabilities. In September 1914, 1 month short of his 20th birthday, he was commissioned on a second lieutenant in the 15th Infantry Battalion. The 15th Infantry Battalion landed at Gallipoli Peninsula on the 25th of April 1915, and a fellow officer remembers him as youthful but serious-faced and not reckless with the lives of his men. He then wrote day and night. This officer religiously carried out his duties without taking undue risks, as befitted a man carrying so much responsibility. He was a tower of strength to his tired and sleepy men, and imbued them with a sense of responsibility almost equal to his own. At the critical and high-risk location of Quinn's Post, Leslie was given a dangerous mission, and his men argued that he shouldn't go, but he insisted he must. He took only one of them with him because of the risk. Neither of them returned. So much potential lost.
Western Front, Captain Ralph White, MC. Ralph Morton White was a 23-year-old certified accountant with the Brisbane Milling Company when he enlisted in 1915. After a short time, his leadership potential was identified and he was promoted to second lieutenant. He served on the Western Front in the 9th Infantry Battalion and demonstrated his leadership and bravery in July 1916. After 36 hours reorganising units that had lost their leaders and consolidating the position, he was rendered unconscious by a shell explosion. For his actions, he was awarded the Military Cross. Once he had recovered, he returned to the front line and was again recommended for bravery in the field in 1917, a recommendation not taken up, and then wounded again in April 1917. Ralph returned to Australia with the rank of captain. He resumed his employment, married, and was active in his professional body. Throughout the 1930s, he was joint treasurer of the Central Methodist Mission, a time of great need with the Great Depression of 1930 and its lengthy aftermath. And the mission did outstanding work in providing spiritual and practical support, including the establishment of hostels, provision of daily luncheons, and delivery of food parcels and clothing to many families.
Nurses, Ida Marie Axelson. Ida Marie Axelson was a devoted nurse who was one of the first sisters of the people for the Central Methodist Mission. The sisters provided medical and welfare assistance to anyone in distress. They made many thousands of visits to homes each year. After 8 years as a sister of the people, Ida enlisted in the Australian Army Nursing Service in 1915 and served throughout the war on one of the hospital ships that brought back the maimed and seriously ill from the Middle East and Europe. The nursing sisters on these vessels had very high workloads, and conditions in the wards below decks could be hot, with very stale air. They showed great care for their patients. One wrote, "Burial at sea was always an impressive service, but it saddened the hearts of the sisters who felt some degree of responsibility whenever they lost a patient. After the war, Ida was matron at St Helens Private Hospital on Brisbane's South Bank, and then at the Westwood Sanitarium in central Queensland, which treated patients with tuberculosis. Later, she worked with the Maternal and Childcare Centre in Brisbane. She made many broader contributions as well. She was on the Council of the Australasian Trained Nurses Association, as well as the Queensland division of the Australian Council of Women. She was also known for her keen interest in the Mothercraft Association, a life given to the welfare of others.
Field ambulance. William Henry Smith. Stretcher bearers showed pure courage to help the maimed and dying. They carried no weapons, going out into no man's land, relying on the Red Cross on their armband for some protection from snipers, and facing the risk of being hit by flying shrapnel or caught in poison gas from artillery fire drifts. William Henry Smith was 26 and serving with the 7th Field Ambulance when he was killed in France in August 1916. He was a carpenter by trade, although working as a stationer when he enlisted in 1915. The official documents give the following account of his death. After being on duty for the whole of the night of August 4, 1916 during an attack, and although ordered to rest on the morning of the 5th of August, hearing that a number of men were lying unattended in no man's land, asked for and obtained permission to go out and dress them. He proceeded there, passing through a heavy barrage of fire, and continued to dress cases until his supply of dressings was exhausted. He returned to the dressing station about 2 p.m. and obtained further supplies of dressings, and again went out to no man's land and continued attending to the wounded under heavy shell fire until he himself was fatally wounded. Field ambulance staff often displayed such courage, as did stretcher bearers within individual infantry battalions. All were willing to sacrifice themselves, if necessary, to aid others.
Sir Alexander Hall Ruthven, then Governor of South Australia, but later Governor-General of Australia from 1936 to 1944, said the following at the unveiling of the South Australian National War Memorial on the 25th of April 1931. It is not for ourselves that we have erected this visible remembrance of great deeds, but rather that those who come after us and have not experienced the horrors of war or realised the wanton destruction or utter futility of it all, may be inspired to devise some better means to settle international disputes other than by international slaughter. Please stand for 1 minute's silence.
Thank you for watching this video. Our church website has a much more extensive record of the names listed on the Albert Street Honour Roll. If you are interested to know more, I invite you to visit the Albert Street Uniting Church website. You'll see the link on the bottom of the screen. Thank you and God bless.